About the cult of CrossFit. Two things that we often see when we are analyzing groups, wondering if they have become essentially cults, is unalivings, either by accident or by self choice, and the trafficking of labor, both of which we are seeing here in the CrossFit case. So, CrossFit has always been very guilty of relying on volunteer labor. And by the way, it is illegal for corporations to accept volunteer labor in the United States. This is because we have a basic understanding that when you have somebody's labor, it is very easy to exploit them. CrossFit, nevertheless, has found the way to do it. Here's something from one of my Instagram informants. She sent me a whole article on the timeline, but she says, there's a million things wrong with this event, but volunteer labor was certainly one. CrossFit extensively consulted with One Taste, which is the Schmorgasm cult, watch that documentary, to help One Taste develop their business model to minimize risk and liability and maximize profit. And now Nicole, the founder of One Taste, is facing federal trial in January for labor trafficking for following their recommendations model. So this affiliate business, which all CrossFit boxes are, is about that. So are MLMs, of course. And then the larger events are mostly staffed by volunteers to insulate them from liability because they're not staff or contractors, right? Very, very concerning. And by the way, Nexium, the super major cult, first of all, Keith Raniere was banned from having any involvement in MLMs before he built the MLMist of all cults. MLMs, by the way, we now call commercial cults. The math doesn't math, and they're built on cult strategy, essentially. A little bit more. The CrossFit Games, like any good non-for-profit, totally not a cult, or for-profit, totally not a cult enterprise, has always run on volunteer labor, which, by the way, is illegal. And this time, an athlete drowned during a poorly designed event, mere feet from volunteers on paddleboards staffing the event. We don't know what their qualifications were yet. We do know mere minutes before the event was slated to begin, the coordinators wrangled a group of volunteers and told them to divide themselves into a group that would crew the run portion and the water portion. So that doesn't exactly bode well for matching skill sets. They also, I believe, did a swim after a run, and this is the exact opposite of what triathlons do because it's bonkers to put people in the water when they are already physically exhausted. The swim should always come first for safety reasons. This is one of these signs when we're looking at groups thinking, are they really a cult? It's just the massive disregard for individuals' lives. Puppy doesn't like that either. And, we always see this like blaming of systemic failures on individuals, but really just the massive disregard, right? And many people, in fact, have their crack in the brainwashing with a medical event. Of course, in this case, the person themselves did unalive, but I'm sure many other people have had the crack in the brainwashing around this medical event. Often it is a medical emergency to us or to our children or someone in our family that we love. And I believe it's because we see in that moment that there is no limit to what the cult will let you sacrifice for them, as was made very, very obvious in the case of CrossFit. Just a couple other things I always want to point out with CrossFit: the misogyny of how it started, the way they used military bros kind of as the skinny white woman to like whitewash what was bad of it. And then the skinny white women, pick me ladies, all joined up to help whitewash it as well. And finally, the jokes, right? The jokes about we're a cult, we know it, but we're a good cult have just always made me not even uncomfortable, just they make me angry because it was so obvious that CrossFit was not a good thing and did not care about individuals and was going to manipulate people. But for sure, pay attention on these groups. Was not surprised when Zappos had 3 senior people unalive themselves, right? We see this happening always in cults, and the labor cults are always about labor. And I say this to individuals, right? Because these groups are not going to change. CrossFit is not going to change. Cults don't rebrand for the better. This isn't going to be enough to shut it down. It's going to continue on being the cultic, individual destroying organization that it is. So I say this for individuals. I am about helping individuals understand groups that have hurt you in the past, groups that are hurting you now, and groups that are going to hurt you in the future. And I think one of the things when we know and we truly understand that cults are about labor is keep an eye on how much labor you are giving to organizations. Honestly, I don't think you should ever dedicate your life to any one thing, because that puts you in danger. But keep count of how much labor you are giving to any organization you are a part of and what you are actually getting in return in this lifetime. I'm Danielle, a scholar of cults, extreme groups, and extremely bad leadership, also called the Knitting Cult Lady and the Disorganizational Psychologist. I wrote a book about growing up in the Children of God religious cult and then going into the U.S. Army and looking at those cult parallels. You can get autographed copies here.